Hey everyone, here we are again recapping the Bachelorette, last night's episode, and we finally hit hometown visits. Woo! And so it means it's our final four. And now, Julie, I don't want to go bragging, but I was right. I was right. I was right. All right, that's it. That's all.
Okay. Yes, you did call it. You did call that.
I nailed it. Final four.
That
right
Eric
here
was going to be in the final four, and I doubted that. So you're right. You were right. You were right. Okay. We'll never mention this again. Okay. You've had your 15 seconds in the
my moment of glory, my victory lap. It's
right.
Fine.
Is there a Bachelorette, trophy or something,
Exactly. I know. It's like a bronze rose, maybe.
Right. The bronze rose. Yes, exactly. Okay. Why not the gold rose? I mean,
that's true. Gold.
I was like, you did win. I mean, it's like if I won, I would be getting the gold rose. Okay.
Good
bronze is third place.
Good point.
I get silver. I get the silver rose. Didi gets the bronze rose because I don't think she even remembered any of the guys' names anyway.
Our final four.
She's like 2 white guys and maybe a black guy. Find some man off the street for to be the fourth one.
All right. Yes. Okay. So the final four: Peter, Eric, Brian, and Dean. Okay. So we went to a few different places as a result. Yeah. Actually, like almost in every,
Actually, yeah.
The Midwest, East, we'll call Miami South,
Right.
Yeah. And then the West, out in Colorado. So,
yeah.
Diversity of race, diversity of place. Rachel's doing it. Okay, so we started with Eric's hometown visit. Yes, in Baltimore.
In Baltimore.
Baltimore,
Maryland. And let's just talk. Okay, Eric's accent, Baltimore accent or Baltimore accent was strong, yes. But his friends' accent. Okay, so Rachel and Eric, they go to Baltimore. He shows her the nice part of Baltimore and said, "This is not where I grew up." And let's go to where I grew up. And they play basketball, and his friend, I forget his friend's name, comes to meet them. And this guy had a strong accent. Accent still exists in this country outside of New York and Boston and the South. So
yes. Now we must just say, state our prejudice a little bit. Like, we're Washingtonians. And so Washingtonians have been known to be a bit, would be the word, I don't want to say look down. That's not accurate. But we think of Baltimore as our cousin who sometimes gets into a bit of trouble, maybe. Right. But we love our cousin, even though that happens sometimes.
Right. Everybody has cousins, right? And there's always that cousin.
Okay.
Okay. We won't name any names personally in our own family.
No.
We won't name our Baltimore cousins, right? That's what yes. Anywho.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, yes. Okay, and then and Eric takes her to meet his family too.
Yes.
And so what did you think of that visit?
It was okay, so I've made my feelings known about Eric. Not that I didn't like him. I like him a lot, but I just didn't feel he was ready. And I was kind of wondering what this visit would turn out to, what it would look like, because he was very honest about his upbringing, saying that a lot of the men in his family, a lot of them have gone to jail, or they were selling drugs or doing drugs. He had a really hard life. And that also with his mom, he never felt that affection and love. He kind of felt a little bit abandoned by her, even though she was physically there. and never saw love expressed between his mom and his father. So I was really wondering, what is this going to look like? And Rachel said that she was really nervous, you know, too. So, but when they walk in, it's like all his family, his mom, his dad, his cousins, his aunts, you know, and they all like are like, woo, like, you know, give them this big, warm, you know, effusive, welcoming, welcome. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, wow. And so she said within 2 minutes or 2 seconds, really, she's like, I felt really comfortable. There was such love there. And his family is great. His, you know, he has, there was a lot of women there. I think it was only just his father and his friend that came, that Rachel and Eric met earlier, but those were the only 2 men. Yeah, but it was a fantastic visit. And I wrote down, because I took notes, I said, great visit. Yes. Really made me root for Eric.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
This is a turnaround.
This is a turnaround. Okay. I've been turned. Yes. Turned. Yes. As a young
I did. I loved it. And I thought, you know, I was like, this is a Black family right here. Like, I just love, it was so like, you know, like.
Yeah, they did start dancing, which I was like, okay, can we just, can we stop? Okay. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
It was. And at first I wasn't, like, I think when they came in, they probably did kind of show names, but I wasn't sure, you know, so when they first, she ended up talking to his aunt first. And I was sort of like, okay, so is his mother here? You know, I wasn't quite sure at first, but then, you know, Eric and his mom had this conversation where they sort of talked more about what had happened in their relationship. And that she said she felt like she sort of needed to push him away in some ways so that he could grow into the kind of man that he needed to. Which I get. I mean,
yeah, that's risky. That's real risky, you know. I mean, listen, I don't have children, so, you know, who am I to judge someone else's parenting tactics? But I'm glad that she said it to him. I'm sure maybe that conversation could have had maybe, I don't know, 10 years before, 15, whatever. You know, because some people just don't understand, like, why did my mom push me away? But that was a great moment that they had. I also thought that Eric's aunt talking to Rachel.
Yeah. About race.
And she's like, you know, when you were chosen as the Bachelorette, everybody was saying you're the first black Bachelorette, you know, and all of this. And so she said, how did you prepare for that? How are you dealing with that? And I thought Rachel was really great. She was like, yeah, it's a lot. And, you know, she said, I'm upholding the, you know, kind of the aspirations of all Black people, but also everyone else. And it's, you know, conflicted. There's a lot of pressure, she said she felt. Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting that, you know, but Rachel said, you know, love has no color. So, you know, she, in that way, let the aunt know that, hey, I don't like Eric just because he's Black. Black is one of the things that he is, you know, so, and probably tipped her hand that there are some other people that are not Black in her.
Well, and that's in some way the way I took it. But I like that first interpretation of yours too. That yes, Eric is Black. I was like, I thought she was saying, yeah, I mean, I'm dating white guys too, and you know,
right? Yes. And then also Rachel asked, do you think Eric is ready for what I am ready for, emotionally prepared? You know, I'm the first woman he's brought home, and he said he's never been in love. And he, what is 29, 30?
29.
Yeah. Okay, so that's, yeah, you know, you're grown. So.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting, and maybe we can talk sort of more once we, you know, recap everyone about the baggage we all carry from our past.
Mm-hmm.
I thought a little bit about, you know, the Erykah Badu song "Bag Lady," And, you know, I don't know, bag men. I feel like that's a mafia term for the guy who has the money, so maybe that's not the right. Still, it's definitely how your family can inform what happens in your relationships, you know, and what you're ready for, and what you haven't gotten over, and what you still need to work through. So, yeah, but let's finish, you know, the recapping. So then what? We went to Miami.
Well, we'll also, you want to just mention that Eric and his dad also had a talk too.
Yes.
And, you know, his dad said, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you. But, you know, I'm really proud of you. And I, you know, trusted that you were going to become a great person.
Well, the thing that gets me a little bit about that conversation, even the conversation with his mom, is, you know, I feel like people can do this thing where it's like, they put you through some stuff, and then they're like, but you know, you're the stronger for it. So it all worked out. It's like, well, I mean, I guess, but you know, Elizabeth Gilbert, right, who wrote Big Magic and Eat, Pray, Love, she posted this thing. Maybe you even sent it to me, that it was like, you know, without Voldemort, just been an ordinary boy, right? And I mentioned that to one of my girlfriends, and she said, she was like, yeah, but what would have been wrong with that? And I was like, you know, touche. Like, what was so bad about growing up with your parents and having them not be killed by an evil wizard? Like, that might have been nice too.
Right, exactly.
So, you know, for Eric, yeah, to have grown up with a mother who showed him affection and a father who was not out running the streets, like, that might have been nice too. You know, I mean, obviously I'm glad that he's reached this place where he can, you know, see all of that as part of his life, and, you know, that's good. But yeah, easy's not so bad either. You know, not having to
not having to struggle. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he mentioned that. He's like, you know, I'm always there for other people, but when I need someone there for me, there's no one there. And his parents kind of basically essentially said that, you know, you're such a strong person, so we knew you'd be okay. Well, that's and people do that, you know, when you're strong or capable and everything, like, oh, I don't have to worry about you, you know. Well, maybe it'd be nice to worry about me and tell me more about you all the time.
Okay.
But that's okay. I'm not going to get into personal business.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Yeah. Okay, so Brian, let's talk about it. Okay. So Brian told her, right, that one of the reasons his previous relationship broke up was because his girlfriend was like, this whole family thing, not for me, right?
Well, not the whole family thing.
Well, his mother, right?
What is that Pedro Almodovar movie, All About My Mother?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the Brian visit could have been called All About My Mother. Okay.
So
Almodovar. Okay, that's his name.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, I will say, when he said that story, even I was like, okay, what's wrong with your mom? Like, what's the deal? I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, what's the problem with your mother?
So you thought they were okay. Okay. So you thought something must be wrong with the mom. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And I want to send a special message to Brian's ex-girlfriend. Girl, you were right. Okay. Girl, you saved yourself. Girl, you should have gotten out of that relationship. Heck no. Okay, look. Well, okay, so let me just, for those who did not see, okay, they go, and Brian's mother said things like, he's the love of my life.
Yes.
She like basically obviously sees him as like perfect, right? He's also an only child, right? Like at some point, Rachel said something about the youngest, and I was like, no, he's not the youngest. He's the only. And and even when there was a point when Rachel, so I don't know if that was his cousin or something who was there. It was like, you know, his mom and dad, and then this other woman who I'm assuming was like a cousin or some other, you know, familiar relation. And she said, Rachel said, so he told me about this ex-girlfriend, like breaking up, and that, and he said, yes, and that was right, you know. Like basically, if she has a problem with him being like, oh, she wanted him all for her own. And that she didn't see, like, you know, how you can be with the family, and that's a problem because clearly they're very close-knit and like very close-knit.
Yes, extremely. Yes. Yes. So from almost jump. So they come in and, you know, he introduces her to the family, and the mom does that toast of, you know,
Yeah.
you're welcome to my home, saying to Rachel. And then she says, and to the most precious thing I have in my life. She starts tearing up, and then everybody's toasting and drinking, and then she downs her drink. Like, she's like, well,
she's like, I gotta get drunk to get through this because
I gotta get drunk to get
someone's trying to take away the most precious thing in my life.
And it was, I mean, sorry, but the way, okay. And so in my notes, I wrote, she cried several times in regards to Brian perhaps moving on and getting married. And he said to Brian and to Rachel, you know, the woman has a lot of power in taking the man away from his family. Like, and you have to understand how important the mother is. And she did joke with Rachel. She said, you know, if you make him happy, I'm happy. But if you hurt him, I'll kill you.
Kill you.
And then Rachel was just like, oh, girl, that's so funny. But I was like, don't. She's Colombian. Okay. Now.
No,
so
now people
I've seen Narcos. He's going to bury your body in some shallow grave.
That's terrible. That is not the way I feel about Colombians. I don't know about her. Okay.
No, I'm not saying all Colombians. I'm just saying her. No, I'm very specific. That's her. Okay.
No, thank you. And so this is the thing, right? There was a point earlier in the episode, I think, where Rachel was sort of like, I don't know why he's still single, right? And, you know, we've sort of talked before, and I think, you know, some people put in the comments that they don't like Brian. They feel like he's too much of a player. And there is a kind of like slickness about him, right? That I don't love, right? But, you know, I've also been like, okay, but I think he does have genuine feelings about her, you know, whatever. When I saw this thing with his mother, I was like, oh, well, this is why you're single. Or this is why you're not married.
Why you're not married.
Like, yeah, because look, I, you know, love my family. Look, I do projects with my family, right? Like, that's how much but that's too much. And I remember us talking years ago about like, if a guy says that his mother is his best friend, I'm like, done. You know, we don't need to date anymore. And, you know, because I think it's one thing to be close. And I think there's another thing to be like codependent, you know, or unable to sort of make your own way in the world because your family's like, no, that's not what we do. And I don't want any part of that, you know?
Yeah. No, it was, she has too big. I mean, so later on, after the whole episode was over, they did the little clips from Brian's visit, and his mom was saying, oh, you've gotten skinny, you're not eating. And he's like, no, I'm eating a lot. She said, oh, you got your hair cut. I don't like it. You know, I mean, just like everything. She was like, wow, mom, you know, but it was like and it was control, regulating things. You're too thin. I don't like your hair. I mean, can you imagine if that was your mother-in-law? And you're like, and Rachel's like, I like it. Well, honey, your opinion is always going to be second to hers.
Absolutely.
And there is going to come a time that he is going to have to choose between his wife or his mother. And that is not going to be a good look because mama is not ready to let go. And honestly, Brian is not either because he said that he put the blame more on his ex-girlfriend than his wife. And of course, we don't know what happened, but just from what we have seen, carefully edited by the producers of The Bachelorette, of his mother, she is too enmeshed in his life, and you should be happy for your son or daughter. Of course, you want the best for them and want them to be happy, but yeah, she acts like any girlfriend is taking him away from her.
Absolutely. No, you know, like there is a certain type of mother, and I feel like this definitely, especially with sons, right, can happen, where it's like there is never going to be a woman good enough for him, that also he's perfect, you know, and that's the message you've drilled into his head. So that also makes relationships really difficult with a man like that, because there are going to be things where he's wrong, right? And where he does need to improve and he does need to change about something. But if he's been told his whole life, like, you're perfect, you're the most precious thing in the world, you're the love of my life, like, there's nothing better than you. Like, how is that man ever going to be able to be like, you know what? I was wrong. You know what? I do need to change this. Like, no, because all he can do is, you know, leave you complaining, you know, and run to his mother, and she'll be like, see, I told you that bitch was no good, you know? Like,
right.
Like, yeah. There's no, and because that's the other thing to me, that a mother like that is not going to support your marriage. Going to be sometimes to say like, well, you know, you should listen to your wife. Like maybe you do need to think about this thing. She's never going to be that person.
Right.
And especially if she's saying all this stuff on national television.
Right.
She's going to say when the cameras are gone. No.
Yeah. No, you know, I was just thinking the difference between Brian's mom and Eric's mom. I would have pushed you away to be a stronger person. And Brian's mom, I want to keep you close to make you a stronger person, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then, okay, you know, we'll talk about Dean's hometown visit later, but the mom was a specter because she's passed away in that whole relationship too.
Yeah.
Now Peter's mom, okay, she's the winner. Okay.
Clearly. Although, you know, she may have, for a minute, I thought she had maybe messed up her son and taken him out of the running. No.
But we will.
Yes.
Speaking of Peter,
more on Brian's visit, or should we move on to Peter's
Let's
visit?
move on to Peter because, oh, wait, no, we can't. We can't move on from Brian yet.
Okay.
Brian, before Rachel left, and they had a good feeling about the visit, and I think Brian was definitely reassured about Rachel, or felt confident after the visit, because the mom did say, you know, you seem like a nice person, and you know, she was nice to Rachel and polite and everything. Brian said that, you know, I'm in love with you, and Rachel said, you know, when she got in, that she said, you know, I'm letting myself feel. She said, I'm letting myself feel all the feels. And so she was letting her wall down. We should also mention that Eric said, you know, I feel like I'm falling in love.
Well, he said, you know, I was thinking to myself, like, you know, I really love this girl. And he was like, and when I say that, I mean, care about you, care about what happens to you. Like, okay.
Right. It was definitely a qualified, like, love. Yeah. But hey.
Right. For someone who hasn't ever told someone they love them, makes sense.
Right. Exactly. Yes. So we have one, I'm in love with you. Another, I really care about you. And then we have Peter in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yay!
Wisconsin.
Midwest.
Yay.
Nice.
Midwest. So what did you think about this hometown visit? He first had her meet all his friends.
Right. Well, you're right. They went to a farmer's market together, and he said, this is where I spend most of my Saturdays. And she was like, this is where I would spend my Saturdays. And I was like, yes, looks lovely. Right. And then she met some of his friends. And I guess I must have missed the episode when he said, so they said in there, did you too? Or maybe they didn't show this part. That he said of his 10 closest friends, 8 of them are Black. It was like, okay, all right, Peter. And let me just say, the fact that that's in Madison,
right.
Like, Peter is friends with all the black people. Okay,
right?
That's
exactly. Those two don't
it's not like in Chicago,
right?
You're friends with all the black people. Like that's the entire black population of Madison. Okay, so cheers to you, Peter.
Right. You. I mean, wow. Yeah. So 2 of his 8 black friends were there. 2 black.
I couldn't figure out. Were the 2 white women their wives, or were those 2 other friends? I don't
know. Yeah, they could have introduced those ladies.
Because can I get a graphic?
Yeah, they kind of gave them the short shift there because we didn't know what or shrift. Yeah, whatever, girl. You know.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
You know what the hell I'm saying. I don't speak English in order to speak English. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So because I had definitely missed that whole part about 8 of his 10 friends being black. So yeah, that was interesting. And so Peter takes the 2 black men to talk to them. What did you think about that conversation?
I mean, I thought it was good. They seemed in some ways like Peter, to be open to what was happening, but also in some ways reserving some judgment, right? I mean, I think they were like, oh, we like her. She seems really genuine, and that's hard to find. She feels like she would fit in with her group of friends, which, as Peter said, I think, is definitely an important thing, like, can you all hang out together? So they seem, supportive of that. And he also said, in some ways in the last episode of like having some reservations about proposing, right? And, they were both sort of encouraging him to not let his fears kind of get in the way of moving forward. And, it definitely seems like Rachel has some concerns about the fact that he is saying he's not sure that he would propose. But other thoughts about the friends or?
No, I thought it was great that they were being encouraging to him and trying to get him to open up more. I mean, I think it's fine to have concerns and say, I don't know if I'll be able to say, in 3 weeks, because he said in 3 weeks, the expectation is I'm going to get on one knee and ask her to marry me, and I'm not sure that I'll feel that then. So I think that's fine, but if you're leading with your fear, because I felt like in this whole episode, in these past 2 episodes, he's been mentioning that a lot and kind of more leading with that and maybe holding himself back because he doesn't feel if he can do that 3 weeks from now instead of being in the moment of right now. I think that is more of the issue. Because if we ask Eric, does he know that? Maybe not. I mean, he said, I really care about you, but he's being in the moment and saying, each moment I'm going to try to expand, and see what's there. And, I think that is perhaps the difference that I see between Eric and Peter. Peter is being very much in his mind, kind of analyzing the situation versus feeling, or maybe he is feeling, and that he just feels and that's the way he expresses himself in terms of the way he feels. So
right. I mean, I can see what you mean, and I guess in some ways I hadn't thought about it in that way. But I also feel like, I mean, it is a really fast process, right? Like 3 more weeks and then you decide, and you haven't even been exclusively dating this person. Right? To then be like, let me drop down on this knee. Here, girl. Like, so I think there is a way that, and this is probably in some ways to Peter's detriment, which is why, like, I'm a little worried about whether he's gonna make it to the final, 2 or even 3. Well, no, he is the 3, but to make to the final 2. Because I think the process is supposed to be like, here, I'm just tumbling through it and I'm going to feel, and it's, in the moment, and we're going to these foreign countries and it's whirlwind, right? And then I'm like, yes, let's get married. But I feel like Peter's like, I want to think about what this really means. Like, if I get down on one knee and propose to you, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's a big, huge step, and it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. I frankly don't know how I would do in this situation too. I mean, I think people who are more contemplative and are slower in a relationship normally, this would probably be like hell for them. It's like, oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to do what now? You want me to feel what? Yeah. But as Dee Dee would say, I really applaud them for opening up and being vulnerable. Because it's a lot. I mean, even in a course of a relationship outside of a reality TV show, it can be scary opening yourself up and wanting to be at a certain place. Maybe one person wants to be at a certain place at a certain time. The other one is like, I'm not sure. So yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, so Rachel and Peter go to meet his family, his father, his mom, his sister, and her husband, and she has 2 kids.
2 kids, yeah.
Yeah. Was that the only person? I don't remember if there was someone else.
No, I think that was it. Yeah, I remember them sort of being kind of the smallest group.
Right, exactly. And so Peter's playing with his niece, and Rachel's like, I can really see that he'd be a great father and a great husband. And she talks to the sister, and it's like, what do you think? If is Peter ready for this? And she's like, well, what you see is what you get. Like, he is not someone who's going to hide his feelings. He's going to be very honest about where he is. And she said, do you think he's ready? And she said, I feel like he is, that he is ready for it. But something has always seemed to happen that he doesn't get to marriage. And so maybe she's like, maybe he's not going to hold back as much. So.
Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, girl. Yeah. She says, in my heart, I feel like he's ready for it, but there's always seems to be something that is holding him back.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's
very interesting.
Chatting to, okay. And so, because then his mom said, like, he might not be, because Peter talked to his mother, right, and did say to her, yeah, I'm not sure that in 3 weeks I can get down and propose. So, okay, I'm sorry to do this. I don't know if we might need to do this over, because, do you hear this echo?
No.
You don't. Well, no. Okay. Never mind, people. Never mind. It's just in my head.
The voices in your head.
Exactly. Telling me to do things. Yes. All right. Whatever. Technology. Fine. Okay. So yes, he says to the mother, like, I'm not sure if I'll be able to. And that's the same thing then when Rachel talks to his mom's like, yeah, I mean, maybe not marriage yet. But I definitely felt like, because Rachel said, I'm not looking for a boyfriend.
Right. Yeah, because his mom was like, yeah, he's ready for a commitment, but maybe not marriage. Yeah, so, yeah, and so Rachel definitely said, I am not looking to be dating someone. I'm ready for marriage. Yeah, so I don't know.
But do you think he's really not? I mean, it sounds like you do think that there's like the reservations that he has are about fear and aren't just about being, trying to slow down the process as you would if you were dating in the real world.
Right. And of course, you never know what, the whole visit was much longer than what we saw on television, so there could have been things that he said or ways in which he's reassuring her. I mean, there have been rumors that he is the one, and that maybe there is some selective editing that's going on to make us doubt. Some doubt in our mind about Peter.
tricky bachelor.
Well, all I have to say is, well, it's working on me because I'm a little bit doubtful.
Good job, TV editors.
Good job, TV editors, because I came out feeling that Eric, who I really felt was not in that place of readiness, he's feeling a little bit more ready than Peter is. Especially, I guess, considering it's one thing if Peter's saying these things, but then his mom is saying it, his sister is saying it, and they're saying that he's ready for something, but something happening. There is something holding him back that has nothing to do with Rachel or with this process.
Yes, but I guess, you know, are you held back from things because it hasn't been the right person? You know, like, you know, I feel like, okay, if you haven't been, I mean, we've talked, you know, like if you haven't been engaged before or something, right? Then it's like, well, you know, like the whole, like, well, why are you still single? Like something must be wrong. Well, you must be like, well, I mean, I suppose everybody's got something. So yes, right? So there is always something, some issue that someone's working through or, you know, thing they're trying to figure out. But, you know, I really believe Peter. I mean, like, as a person, right, seems the most genuine to me. Like they have a real connection and not one that, you know, with Brian where I'm like, okay, is this just the fantasy of the thing? Is it just television, you know? And frankly, with Eric, it's like, yeah, the fact that you haven't been in love before. Now, see, that makes me worry more because then there's obviously something that's holding him back. And for you to first get to the point of being in love, I mean, just being in love with someone can be terrifying, you know? Never mind marriage. Like just being open and vulnerable enough to be like, I love you can be a lot, you know, never mind will you marry me. So I am Team Peter. Let me tell you what. I am totally Team Peter.
I really like Peter a lot. And, you know, I think in the next episode, we'll see what, you know, happens in terms of his blossoming, opening up. So anyway, so Rachel left with some doubts, but definitely is still feeling Peter. And the visit was great. I mean, it was out of all 4 visits, it was the most low key and like,
yeah, like this could be your life.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, it's a Tuesday. You know, here you are.
Farmer's market. We hung out with my friends. We went to see mom and dad. Like,
right, exactly. It was very much, okay, this is what life looks like, basically, you know?
Right.
Yeah, very low key. And, you know, we're doing ordinary things.
Now, Dean's visit, very much the opposite.
Very much. It is not Tuesday. Well, this is on some people's Tuesdays.
Or it is, but in an alternate reality.
Yes. So Dean in Aspen, you know, if you've been watching, you know that there is a lot of tension in his family after his mom died. He said that he was 15. He felt like everybody in the family kind of did their own thing. And he was the youngest. So I believe,
yes,
or nearabouts, right?
I think,
yeah. And that he kind of felt abandoned by his family, that said he kind of raised himself the last 2, you know, odd years of high school, and that his father really withdrew because the mom was like the glue that held the family together. She was the one that made the family. And then when she passed away, all of that kind of went with it. And so he hasn't spoken to his father at that time in 2 years. So, wow, and then also all his family hadn't been in the same room in 8 years.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
So there's a lot that Rachel was walking into that day. A lot that Dean was walking into.
Right, and that's just the emotional stuff. Like the logistics of it, which are his dad is what has become a Kundalini yogi spiritual. Okay, there you go. But he also said something about Kundalini yoga at one point. So I was like, is this all together? Is this two separate things? And then he changed his name
to Param Ram.
And then his wife to something else. Totem. Something.
Oh, we don't remember.
So, they go in, everyone's sitting on the floor, and Dean was like, why are we all sitting on the floor?
Oh, but before they walk in, when they're walking up to the door, Dean is like losing his stuff, okay? He's saying, I just want you to let you know this is not a good indication of who I am, of who I was. He's like, I'm really nervous. I'm terrified. This is going to be awful. Okay? He is saying that as they're walking up. Can you imagine being his girlfriend as he's saying, okay, so hold on to your hats because this is going to be a bumpy ride and it's going to suck.
Right.
Okay? Okay, I'm so excited.
Yeah, great. Let's go in then.
Let's go into this shit show.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, it did prove to be a bumpy ride. So yes, everyone was sitting on the floor. Which, nothing wrong with that. And it was definitely a very granola crunchy experience, right? Which, look, I like a little granola. Okay, I like the crunch, right? But it was like, okay, let me just let all the other hometown visits. Not gonna be. This one's all on its own. So the father played the gong for them to usher in good energy. And they all laid on the floor with their heads pointed toward the gong, I guess to receive more of the energy. But Rachel was going with it. She was like, I kind of liked it. It was nice. It did kind of feel like good energy in there. So that was fun.
Right.
I have to say, it was definitely, especially with him, both of these, him and his wife, both white people with the kufis on. I just felt like this is really having a hard time adjusting. But mostly it seemed fine, right? Like they made some stew that had mung beans in it. And, again, more crunchy granola experience. Nothing wrong with that. And then Dean started talking to his dad. And that was definitely, and Rachel was outside talking to Dean's sister.
Right. Yeah.
And sort of asked her some things. And, there was interesting because there were ways, in some ways, about what people said about Eric, his family said about Eric was also sort of what people were saying about Dean. Like, he's really strong, has been through a lot. He's one of the strongest people I know. So that's all good. But clearly, Dean and his dad, because they haven't been talking, there's a lot that they hadn't worked through. So what did you think about that conversation?
So I think Dean was not going to necessarily bring, things up because actually it was a dad that asked to have the one-on-one time with him. And yes. I think things when Dean was like, no, I've got to say something. When the dad said, I look at you and I see your growth and it's so great. And the dad said, I must have been a pretty good dad. And then I think Dean's head exploded because he was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so Dean tried to tiptoe his way. He was like, so you don't see a difference in the way that we, our relationship, like before mom died and after mom died and, and now you think there's been any growth? And he's like, no, I think, basically Dean's dad, Parham, was saying, no, I think everything is fine. He's like, no, it's not. No. And Dean was very honest that he felt like his father had abandoned him. And the father was defensive from jump.
Yeah.
from jump, and was like, I've invited you to my home, and kind of basically, and this is the way you treat me. You're bringing up old stuff and everything. I will say I thought it was good that his father said, that he was a mess after Dean's mother passed away, that, he didn't know how to be a father and a mom, because the mother had always handled that, and that she was a light. And so earlier in the evening, he gave Dean and Rachel these flowers, the Debbie flowers, that kind of feathers, right. That kind of had the energy of Debbie and what she represented, the love and the welcoming spirit and everything, which was beautiful. And he started to tear up.
I know, he said she was like the most wonderful woman I know. And then he was like, except for my wife now.
Right, exactly. But it was quite clear. I mean, something that that impression that he really, really loved Dean's mother, and that he was emotionally destroyed by it. Obviously the whole family was, but he did not, Parham said he was very angry, but he didn't, you have kids. And so Dean was like, we all were, and so he, from Dean's impression, did not step up as a father and also help the rest of the family address their own needs. And Dean said, I thought we would come together in solidarity and say, okay, this horrible thing has happened, and so, but we're going to be together as a family. And it's
hard, because I think I think there was definitely a part of me that was like, no, Dean is right, like, you should have stepped up, or you should have been there for your kids. And then there was also clearly a way that father was like, how to do that. That he was not equipped to be that person, that he had been the breadwinner, and that she had, and I thought it was really touching, he said, that she had sort of made a home for them. And so he said, so when I, came to tell you that she had died, I knew that was all over. And clearly, he wasn't able to not only process his own grief, but also to be the kind of man he hadn't been up until then. And, I think part of what at some point for Dean, is there a moment of, there's this term, radical acceptance. Recognize that a person can't be what you want them to be. Mm-hmm. And so instead of like trying to change them, that you find a way to radically accept them as they are. And, clearly his dad is on kind of this other, alternative path. I mean, I don't know how much he was sort of into, spirituality and that sort of thing when they were growing up. I mean, it kind of sounds maybe not, like Dean was saying, this is not, the way that I grew up. But, that in part, maybe this is the way he's trying to heal and change. But that able to be then obviously still haunts Dean, and probably in some ways still haunts him, because he, is defensive and doesn't even really want to talk about it, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, yes, Dean is going to have to get to a point of radical acceptance, and not about Parham, but really what happened.
Yes.
What happened. But the thing also, so there are a few things that I was thinking when Dean's father walked out a few times, and even when Rachel tried to talk to him about, just not even about what's going on with he and Dean, but just about Dean, he kind of got defensive then. It's like, I can't do this, whatever.
Yeah.
So one, spirituality is a practice. And I was not feeling that Parham was practicing his spirituality that night. Okay. No, he has not. Parham needs to come to a radical acceptance about, I messed up. Okay. Yes. I messed up.
Yes. Well, that's
all that's need to say. And that's all really the Dean wanted him. Dean's not trying to change you. He's not saying, don't make me mung beans no more. Dean was saying, this is what happened to you. And he wasn't even saying, he was saying, this is my experience of the situation. And by not letting Dean have his moment of, this is what I felt, what was going on. You were feeling what you were feeling, because he wasn't trying to negate his father's feelings. He was just saying, can you please just honor what I was also feeling during that time, you know? And that's really what a lot of people really want. They want to be seen. And sometimes they know they're not going to necessarily get the apology or the response from you, but they want you to say, you know what? I see what you went through, and I'm sorry for whatever part that I played, you know, and I'm sorry that that happened to you, whatever, you know, which is what was different from Eric's parents, and said, you know, I knew that I made these choices.
Yes.
And these are my reasonings. And, you know, I'm glad that you turned out. I'm proud of you, whatever. If Dean's father had said, these are the choices I made, I was not in a good place, and I know I probably could have done more, or this is what I chose to do, we have this opportunity now. I think it would have really been different, you know? So
absolutely. And definitely, yeah. I think someone, you know, you want to be, as you said, seen and understood, right? That someone has heard your pain.
Right.
And I don't, you know, Dean's father didn't do that for him. Like, if he had said, I get it, you know, I can't even imagine what it was like losing your mother at 15. And I wish I could have shown up more for you. That would have gone a tremendously long way.
Right. Exactly. And then also the other thing is, you don't get to decide when someone's pain should be over. Okay. That is not your decision, you know? So Dean's father saying, you're dragging up the past, whatever. You don't get to decide that, you know, it's over for him, that he's complete with what happened. You know, that's not your decision. Now you can just say, hey, you know, I'm sorry you're still feeling this way, or, you know, I'm trying to move on. I'm not there, whatever. But, you know, he can't make that decision for Dean. And so that visit really, I mean, was just, Dean. I just felt so much for Dean. And, you know, here he was alone in the house because his father had walked out on the conversation, and then Rachel comes in and he's just like a mess, you know, like his worst nightmares of, this is going to be awful, this is going to be horrible, have come true, you know, and kind of having those wounds kind of, you know, fresh again.
Yeah.
Was sad.
Yeah. Was sad. Well, and, you know, Rachel tried to talk to his dad, as you said, and he sort of walked away from her. They did talk a little more. I mean, he did say, like, you know, you're welcome to come back to my home. And, you know, I, you know, want sort of whatever this journey ends up being for you all, you know. But, and I think certainly this visit gave her some food for thought. But she goes back in on the ground. She lays next to him, you know, trying to sort of comfort him, and he tells her that he loves her, and she says it back, which really surprised me.
Right. Yeah. Well, they both say, I'm falling in love with you.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
But still,
right.
Usually, and, you know, and we talked about when we first started doing these recaps, like, you know, before this season, hadn't watched The Bachelor, The Bachelorette in years, but people would never, I watched a couple of, you know, episodes last season of The Bachelor because Rachel was on it, right? And you know, all the different women who were at the Final Four, you know, they told him I love him, and he was like, you know, I'm falling in love with him, and he was like, I'm going for the kiss or whatever. Like, no one really says it back.
Right.
And she didn't say it back to Brian, right? She didn't say anything back. I mean, even though Eric sort of was like, and I love you, but not and I love you, you know, she didn't say anything back to him. So when she said it to Dean, I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah. But, I mean, didn't seem to work out, though. So we get to the rose ceremony, and, you know, Rachel talks to Chris Harrison, and she's like, I'm struggling, you know, and like thinking about the feelings that I feel, you know, how deep it can get, you know, and how much you can feel for someone over time, and obviously feel for multiple people, you know, even at the same time. So Brian gets the first rose. Kind of no surprise.
Right, yeah, kind of a pattern, yeah.
Right, because Rachel seemed not as alarmed as clearly I was about that mother visit. So, because I might have gotten up and been like, well, this has been nice, but I think I already know my decision. So,
right.
You know, clearly all that chemistry with Brian is enough that she's like, yes, come on, take this rose. And then your newfound favorite, Eric.
Yes, Eric gets the second rose. Go, Eric. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so clearly that visit also reassured her in some ways about what he's capable of and the connection they have and what kind of family she would get if they ended up together. And then, you know, because I thought maybe Eric wasn't going to make the final three. Like, I was like, well, maybe it's, you know, maybe Peter and Dean are going to, especially because she'd said, I love you back to Dean.
Right.
You know? And I already said I'm team Peter, so I was hoping he would get, you know, into the three. So then when it came down to Dean and Peter, I was like, oh, well. And so I thought maybe the hesitation on Peter's part meant that he was going to get the axe. But then Peter gets that last rose. And poor Dean gets sent home. So, and what did you think? So they have a conversation at the end as she's sort of walking them out.
Yeah.
I mean, as she says, she wasn't sure that they wanted the same things. I kind of wanted her to say more to him.
Right, because and so he mentioned, he's like, you know, I told you I was falling in love with you, and you said it too. And he's like, you know, did you not mean it? And he's like, no, I meant it. I meant everything I say. I still do, you know. But yeah, she just felt, I don't know, that, well, she also said in terms of his readiness as well for what she wanted. Yeah. And I never got that impression from Dean. He is the youngest of the four of them because he's 26. And I don't know what he's doing for his career or, you know, what his life.
He's a startup recruiter.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I always felt like Dean was pretty level-headed and was willing to open up. Definitely he has, I mean, it sometimes has taken him, like before the hometown dates, Rachel was mentioning that he wasn't opening up the way that she thought he would, but she pressed him and kind of called him on it, and he did, and told her about the problems with his father and and his concerns about the hometown visit. So I don't know, like, she's also said that about Peter and about Eric. And just, I kind of felt that there was more evidence about perhaps their lack of readiness or maybe their hesitation than Dean. For Dean, it really was just that whole family situation that seemed to be a stumbling block. And maybe that's what was playing into her decision. Because other than that, I didn't really see what she was talking about.
Well, I will say early on, I did sort of think, and I maybe say another recap, that I was like, 26, like that's kind of young, right? But then when I found out about his mom dying when he was 15, I was actually like, well, you know, that can definitely mature you in a way that, you know. So then I sort of, my concerns about him being too young were gone after that, because I was like, yeah, that he's a different kind of 26 then, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did. So that's why I wanted her to say more, like, well, what do you mean about my readiness? You know, because look, I will say, you know, as I said about the baggage that people are carrying, right? I think there's a real way that, you know, Dean has a lot that he still has to deal with. And essentially, I mean, his mom died only 10 years ago, right? And, you know, given that he isn't sort of as in touch with not just his dad, but it sounded, you know, like with any of his family, right? And it's right. But you certainly want someone to at least, or, you know, to be at more of a peaceful place about it, let's say.
Right.
And, you know, it definitely feels like Dean is still working a lot of that stuff out, which, you know, I mean, that happens. But I did want her to sort of say more, like, is it that you feel like he's working this out to the point where you don't even feel like he can be, you know, ready for the kind of commitment because he has to sort of focus on that. That's still occupying so much of him. Or what, you know? And especially because she had told him that she was also falling in love with him. And I don't think she was lying, you know? But to give him more to leave with, you know?
Yeah.
Because what he said in the limo leaving was like, well, I guess that wasn't true about her, you know? And then so now it's like, now someone goes away with like this, you know, bitterness in their heart and they don't know, like, I thought she could have done a bit better by Dean in that ending.
Yeah, me too. I mean, honestly, I'll be very honest. I was crying at the end of that episode.
Wow.
Yeah, because I just felt so bad for Dean, you know, because he had all these fears about the hometown visit, thinking that it was going to turn her off.
Yes.
And then at the end, you know, when he's in this really vulnerable place, you know, they say that, you know, we're falling in love with each other. And so he's feeling like he has a home, because that's what he hasn't felt in so long, that kind of safety in love, right? Mm-hmm. And then to be sent home after that, I thought, I was like, damn, this really sucks for him. You know, I mean, I don't know what kind of support system he has or whatever. But I was really feeling it for Dean. I don't know if I thought that he was going to be, you know, one of two, but it was kind of like, well, can't we just do this another time? Why don't we just keep 4 more people and then elimination another time? Because this is really not a good time for Dean right now. So let's respect that and do this another time. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, he just had a really difficult time with his father. He doesn't need this.
Right. So, he doesn't need this right now, Rachel. So back off.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, in relationships, you know, like things end sometimes, right? But to leave somebody better than you found them.
Right.
And, you know, if in part that means even, you know, telling them something hard. I mean, you know, that even if she had said in some, I mean, I don't know, like had said, like, I don't know if, you know, given the fractured nature of your family, if that is something that, you know, I would be able to go on a journey with you for, you know, something, you know, but also to say, like, you know, I recognize it's not your fault, or, you know, you're trying to work through things and everyone has difficult families. I don't know. I wanted her to give him a good, I was going to say a happy ending. No, not like that. Not like that. But a better ending than maybe the one he got. But them's the breaks. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, we have to eliminate more people. And it was actually interesting watching the rose ceremony. I was like, geez, how did we get to only 4 people? It was just, it felt like, I mean, it's just like, oh, wow, okay, we're really here now. So,
It's true. I know. So yeah, next week, overnights. And then we'll get down to the final folks. Right. It's just so, you know, interesting to me, especially with the Bachelorette, that it is like, I mean, obviously the woman picks, but then the man is still proposing. You know,
right, exactly.
Still sort of shifts the power away from her.
Right. Yeah. Because he still has to decide. Well, I guess, you know, even if someone asked you to marry them, you know, you could always say, I'm just not in a place right now. But I don't feel like that happens in the same way. It's because, and maybe because it's not, the women in the Bachelor are not doing the asking, they're doing more of the receiving or you know, consenting, or I don't know.
Right.
How you would term it.
Yes.
So
yeah. So all right, people. So visit us on spinstersunion.com. Other last thoughts?
No, we'll see you next week for the finale, or I guess.
No, so it should be like the second to last. I think it's going to be next week. It's going to be the overnights, and then they're going to do like the men tell all or whatever.
Right.
And then it'll be the finale. But, you know, people tell us in the comments if I'm wrong.
Right, exactly. If you know more than we do. Yeah,
exactly.
So subscribe to our channel and visit us on spinstersunion.com, Spinsters Union on all social media channels.
Indeed.
Peace out.
Peace.
Bye.
See you next week.